Everybody, it's Sheryl from Tutoring with Sheryl and the Tech Coach for Tutors, and I'm here with Tina McMillan and our special guest, Julia Cook, who is a author, who's an award-winning author, and she's not only going to be talking to us about the books that she's been writing for children, but she's also going to be talking to us about Cookie Bytes, and we'll find more about this special way to support our children and with the use of her books. And so for those of you that are just stopping in, I wanted to do a quick introduction to myself. My name is, like I said, Sheryl Euling. I run a private tutoring business for struggling readers, and I've used Julia's books with my students. And so, yeah, that's who I am. Let's meet our co-host, Tina McMillan. Tina, would you introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to our 5th podcast. I'm so excited. Today we get to meet Julia Cook. I'm Tina McMillan with Atypical Tutors. So I work with neurodivergent students, kids that have autism, that have ADHD, dyslexia, and any other kind of learning delay. I'm a tutor as well. I'm a reading interventionist and a behavioral consultant. So I kind of do everything. I can kind of pull it all together and help them succeed both in school and in life, basically.
Awesome. And then we want to invite Julia, of course, to the stage. Julia, would you take a second to introduce yourself, and then we'll get going on the questions.
Great. My name is Julia Cook. I'm a former middle school teacher turned elementary counselor turned author and presenter. It was quite an interesting journey. And now I do a lot of speaking and a lot of teacher training and a lot of kid talks and parent talks.
Yes. And actually, I remember you came to the school I was formerly teaching at, and that was the first time I had ever been introduced to you or your books. And then shortly thereafter, I bought several books to give to nieces, nephews, my children, and now I'm buying them for my grandchildren because I think they do such a great job. We're going to dive into your books after you go a little bit deeper into your history in the world of education, because if people are watching this and they're getting their books, getting your books purchased, they might want to have that little history. Can you give us a little history lesson on what that looked like?
I was a middle school math teacher, and these were really struggling kids, and you had to make it interesting to them in order for it to work. And so I decided to get my degree in counseling, not to be a counselor specifically, but just to be a better teacher. And our town I moved to a smaller town with my husband, and they needed a school counselor, and I had that degree, so I took that position. And the kids in my building were struggling with tattling. Like, this was in 2004, and everybody was getting in everybody's business. And, we have this much to teach kids, and we have this much time to do it in. If we can find a really cool book, we can read it to them, and in about 5 or 6 minutes get in their head. And if the book has great stuff in it, the great stuff will stick with them. And I was taught that by a grad teacher in counseling. And so I looked for a book on tattling, and I could not find one that said what I wanted it to say. So I wrote a story just for my building about a little kid who tattled so much he grew a tail. And that had 4 rules. And the rules started working. And this teacher busts in my office one day and says, "This is amazing. You need to do something with this." So I grabbed a book off the shelf, not one I'd written, but one I used with kids, and turned it to the publishing page in the front and called the phone number. And I said, "I'm a school counselor in Nebraska, and I just wrote this book on tattling. It's working." And they said, "Send it in. We're looking for one." So I overnighted it on Monday, and they called me on Wednesday, 2 days later, and said, "We want to publish your book. Do you have any more?" And I said, "How much do I have to pay you?" They said, "Oh, we're going to pay you." And I dropped the phone. Then they said, "Do you have any other books?" Well, when I was little, I used to interrupt all the time. Interrupted so much, my babysitter said, "Julia, your mouth's a volcano." So I have that one. There are now 126 total titles. They come in about 9 languages. This is Tattle in Chinese. They're used pretty much throughout the world. And last I checked, we just have under 4 million sold. So it's just been kind of a journey and a learn and do. These books, some of them were written almost 20 years ago. Every time they go to reprint, we regroup the book. We tweak it to work with these kids of today, because kids change. Like the volcano book said, "I got a timeout" in the original version. And now the recent version says, "My teacher had me go sit on the Zen Den chair and think about it." So in order for these books to stay current, they have to keep updating as our kids change. And story.
I love it. And I this is not quite with that story, but it feeds off of what you just said. My mouth is a volcano. I just used that last week with one of my students he's autistic, and he had a real emotional meltdown about something that was maybe a little problem and not such a big problem. And I used your book. We read it, we talked about it, and then he could see what the perspective of what he did had an effect on other people, and that he needed to just kind of just calm down and kind of think things through a little bit. And then we talked about how he could maybe apologize and maybe make amends for what he had done, and his parents were so happy. And I would not have had a book. I couldn't come up with any other author. I didn't have one in my head, but I knew that you had a book that maybe there was a better title for that, but that was the one that came to mind. And it did work for the situation and for talking him through that. So I appreciated the fact that I had a resource to go to.
If the kids see themselves in the story and they do what the kid in the book does in the story, then they solve their own problem. Because kids would come in my office and want me to wave my wand and solve their problems for them. And if we do that, they never move out. They always stay with their parents if we solve their problems for them, So you have to give your child the wand and teach them how to wave it.
Yes, I love that. And I think sometimes, it's really all kids, but just that battle to handle emotions and to, know the right way to react. And sometimes they're not given those social situations with their family, but then they go to school and they're in a crowd of people and they don't really know what to do. So the books really do help kids see through the lens of the child. I think that's the important part. The books are written through the lens of the child, and they're seeing these reactions of things that are happening around them, and they're kind of piecing that together. It's not shameful. It's a way for them to kind of just think through, oh, maybe I could have handled that differently. And I appreciate that. I think there's a lot of value in that.
Right. And I love the way that the kids can kind of externalize what they're going through. Sometimes they don't want to kind of see what they've done. It's good. It's easier to see it through someone else's eyes. Oh, well, that's what happened to him. That's not going to happen to me, kind of thing. And I wanted to say thank you so much for making the workbooks that go with them. I have the books and the workbooks. I don't know if you can see. I have so many of them behind me. I use them so often. I love Personal Space Camp. That's a great one. I love it. I actually use hula hoops. It's a great visual, and they can really feel what you're talking about. And I think that if you can use more than one of your senses to teach a message, it just becomes that much stronger.
Much
yeah.
easier.
And yes, and we will have you dive into that in just a minute. But, I think another reason you were inspired to write this book for kids, you kind of already mentioned it, but was there any other reasons that you were inspired to write these books for kids other than your the counseling and maybe your personal?
I was a verb in school, and I had ADHD. Only back then they called it BRAT. They called it brat. And I remember at 6 years old, my teacher said, "Sit down, get in your seat, sit in your seat." And so I didn't. I kept getting up, and she tied me to my chair with dental floss. Now, it wasn't to be mean. It wasn't like abusive at that time. She was just trying to remind me to sit down. That was the days. I mean, I'm 60 years old, so that was way back in the years. And I just remember thinking, I don't want to get tied to the chair. I was humiliated. So I sat down the next day, and I had my feet on the floor, my hands in my lap, and I was so good. And I have absolutely no idea what the teacher said all day, because it was a full-time job to keep the feet on the floor and the hands in lap. And so these, we can't solve kids' problems for them, but we have to make them feel seen, heard, and validated. And then we have to teach them to, solve their own problems. And it's just a great vehicle, because they'll absorb it indirectly, and then they don't feel bad because the kid in the book might have the same issue that they have.
Right. I think that identifying with somebody else that has the same thing, that, even as adults, we do that. Think about like, oh, I want to lose weight. I got to go find somebody else that wants to lose weight. You identify with them.
Right.
And kids do the same thing with their social, emotional things. So Tina, I'm going to switch it over to you and just have you kind of start with your questions. And then this will probably just lead to more conversation. Julia, I just love what you're sharing here.
Thank you.
So Julia, thanks again. What is one of your favorite books that you've created, and why? I think you might have already said it, but we'll see.
The Judgmental Flower, I think, is by far one that stands out. our lives, I mean, in order to have a relationship with anyone, you have to be able to trust them and you have to be able to talk to them. You don't have to like them or dislike them, but to work in the same direction with a human being, you have to be able to trust them and talk to them. And this is a book that, you know, a little blue flower is growing along and a purple flower grows in his patch, and he says purple doesn't belong here. And it's a way of celebrating differences, but it's also a big message, because if you think about it, if we could trust and talk to North Korea and they could trust and talk to us, we wouldn't have any volatile relationships globally with North Korea. And that goes with every relationship. I mean, if you're divorced, it's probably a trust issue or a talk to issue. Not necessarily a like or a love or a dislike issue, but a person cannot have a relationship with another one without trust and communication. And we're in the relationship business as teachers, educators, counselors, social workers. And so it's a real nice recipe, because you can figure out, is this a talk to issue or a trust issue or both? And that's where you know to put your energy. The important part is that I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. When Soda Pop Head came out many years ago, the kid would say, "There goes Lester, watch him fester. His ears start to fizz, he gets mad as he grows." And I had a person reach out and say, "You're shaming kids. We don't make fun of kids for losing it. Why would you put that in a book?" So we redid that book, and it's the boy saying, "I am Lester, watch me fester. My ears start to fizz, I get mad as a grizz, my face turns red, I'm a Soda Pop Head." So there's an example of how they've changed, because when it came out, that wasn't an issue, but now it is. And then if you have the old version, you could ask your kids, is that a right way to do this? What's a better way? So you can use the old version to teach. But none of these books are written in stone. And the thing is, I really highly depend on readers and teachers and counselors and social workers to tell me if they see something they don't like, they tell me and we fix it. Because these books need to benefit all kids, not just some kids. So my goal is to help, never to hurt, never to shame, of course. And so it's just an open book there. And it's like, if something doesn't work, you let me know and I'll fix it, because we're always changing, just like the books.
That's amazing. You have that flexibility to make those changes. That's incredible. So impressive that you can do that. And it must be, is it a pretty fast process to do that? The quick turnaround?
Well,
get it back
they
out?
order a certain amount of books, so a publisher is not going to, change it immediately. But when those cycle through, which they often do, then the next version, every time a book's up for reprint, they send me an email and say, "What do we want to do different on this one?" Which is really valuable. So, sometimes books teach you what not to do too. So, like I said, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. And then another thing, no one would really help me when I first started out. No one was really willing to help me down this journey. So I kind of vowed that if I ever ended up making it work, I would be there for anyone who wants to get a book out, because I can at least point you in the right direction. It is not a competition. It is a cooperation. And we can't have too many cool ideas out there for kids. So the kids, that's the top rung, and everything else should come secondary.
I love that. Like, the kids are our future. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
The changes we make with them now will affect the next generation, and maybe the one after that even as well. That's incredible. Well, I love all your books, because they focus on social skills, but also life skills. I think adults can benefit from reading your books.
Well, and you can put some positive teaching strategies in the books, and then when parents read the books with their kids, they can pick those up without anyone telling them how to parent, because we have a lot of proud parents out there, and they are their kids' experts. They absolutely know their kids better than anybody. But if you can give them information through a backdoor approach and let them tweak it to fix themselves, and if they need it, it's real beneficial.
Absolutely. I totally agree. That's such a great answer. I love it.
Thank you.
So, did you want to talk about maybe your website now?
Well, I kind of do, because the thing is, we have, our kids are inundated with information. I mean, they can get information like that with technology. So what makes the information that a teacher, for say, has to give a kid important enough for them, to learn? And every time a kid, and this is all relationship based too, because every time a child is asked to do something in the classroom, the first thing they're going to ask themselves is, why should I do this? Okay, let's do this one first. Why should I do what you're asking me to do? All right. So we often ask kids, you shouldn't talk when I talk because then you can't listen. Well, that doesn't make sense. But if I show kids, okay, let's pretend that there's a racetrack sitting on your tongue and it's going all the way back to your brain. And every time you talk, a little tiny race car drives out of your track. And every time someone talks to you, a little race car drives into your brain. What happens if you talk when I talk? Those race cars crash. So everybody do this. These are the words coming out of your mouth. And these are my words. So if you're talking when I talk, those words explode and nothing gets into your head. That's a lot more meaningful to a kid than saying you can't talk and listen at the same time, because that doesn't mean anything. Okay. Now, so that's the why I shouldn't talk when you talk. And then the what's in it for me when I do it is, you don't ever have to worry about listening to that again because it's in your head, So I have all these kind of tricks and tips for kids that I use when I go to talk to them, like being all in. These are all in ears. Okay. And during the pandemic, we started reading online stories and they loved it, but we also put the pictures up there, and then nobody bought the books. They just watched the videos. So the publishers don't like that. Now, the publishers for these books are all nonprofits. So when they make a lot of money, that money goes back to kids, not to pay a high level official, which I absolutely love that concept. So, but anyway, I thought, well, how could I put the books online? Because some people get really tired of reading them and they say, well, we love the way you read them. So I thought, well, I'm just going to put all the audiobooks online. And then you can hold the book up and I read it to your kids. And so that spurred on to more and more things, video ideas. And then I thought, well, I have visuals, big emotions are a big problem. So if I make a video of this, then teachers can do this with their kids and make sense. We all have 4 basic human emotions. There's joy, which makes us feel good on the inside. And there's sadness, which helps us get through things that are hard. And there's anger, and your anger's job is to protect you. And then it's also your anger's job is to teach you that there might be a better way out there to do something. Okay. And there's worry, and your worry is a really good emotion because it helps you figure out what might happen in the next, and so that you can be prepared for it. And your emotions are very important, and they have a real purpose. And as long as they fit inside of you like this, then everything is fine. But sometimes our emotions get big and they start to grow, and we try to fit them in. We try to push them inside of us like this, and they're so big that we get so uncomfortable that they don't even fit. And it's just very uncomfortable. And then once in a while, your emotions get really big. And this emotion's so big that there's not any room for any other emotions inside of you. And it doesn't even fit inside of you. And it's okay for your emotions to get big and then go small, as long as you can control their size. But if they get really big, you got to think of some creative ways to let some of the air out and let them skinnier, let them get smaller. Because if you don't, those emotions are going to come out and you never know where they're going to land. See, those kind of concrete visuals actually teach kids, oh my gosh, when I'm anxious, it's not such a bad thing. When I'm angry, it's a good thing. It's protecting me. And if they understand that their emotions have a purpose and a reason, that's a game changer. But to teach kids these days, literally, they have to be able to see it, hear it, feel it, do it, show it to somebody else, and relate it to something they already know in order to learn. These days of seeing it and hearing it are over. And so I thought, well, I'm going to just put all these tricks and tips in one place. So I'm going to share my screen really quick and show you. Here we go. You see my screen, guys?
can you click on the tab that you want to
I
share?
will certainly share.
Okay.
First of all, this is my website,
There
right?
we go. I see it.
Okay. And then you can go to titles and topics. And for every book, there's a description of what it covers. And for every topic, there's a Cookie Bytes entry. So when you go to Cookie Bytes, okay, first of all, you can go and there's two platforms. There's Patreon and Substack. Patreon is an international platform. Substack is very usable. So use Substack if you sign up and you go to audiobooks. And there's all the books read aloud. Maybe you don't have the I Am Vape book, but you want to know what it sounds like. So then you would just click here. And this is me reading the vape book aloud. And then there's a video that explains addiction and how to teach kids about that. And then for each topic, there's a grab and go activity. Maybe this one, it says make a list of the chemicals that are found in vape juice. Okay. And then here's one for younger kids, color the healthy lungs pink, draw hot vapor fires burning your lungs, and draw the burn lungs. So there's little pieces for each. No matter what happens at the end of each content at each topic, there's a takeaway sheet. And when you get done talking with about vaping with your kids, this is everything you need to know. So it's kind of like having your own little school counselor in your classroom. And I've done several visits at schools, and over the years, I've gotten so many cool quotes. And every time I find a cool quote, I just made it into a poster. Okay, so there are several posters that you can use to hang up. This one, like communication, this one is really cool. Be a voice, not an echo. So if you are using Cookie Bytes, you own all these posters. You would just print them out and use them as you would want to decorate your can-do attitude. These are all the teaching videos, like getting kids going in the morning. It's if you're a parent and you have that kid that just doesn't get from A to B, here's a video with a trick on it. Talking to boys, there's a difference in talking to boys and eye level when you are a female. Getting your kids to talk to you. So they're all of these videos, every one of them is a teaching trick. So it's not like you show these videos to kids. You do this, you watch these, and then you do this with your kids. The dealing with big emotions is the one I just showed you. But the nicest feature ever is this tags. Let's say that we are a teacher and we're looking for, our kids just cannot work as a team. They're just not doing well as a team. So you come over here and you push teamwork. And when you do that, teamwork isn't my thing and I don't like to share comes up. But then there is this amazing teamwork lesson here that you watch and then do with kids. And I'll tell you about that in a minute when I click back over from the not share. Then there's takeaways on how to be a good team player and parent tips that you can download. And, this grab and go activity for being a team. You read all these quotes down here and you decide which quote explains this better. And then you tell why. And so they're reading all of these quotes about teamwork. So these activities take maybe 5 or 10 minutes at the most, and you don't need a lot of prep work. But what it does is it allows you, and let's see, how do I unshare?
Just go to the right next to the smiley face in the meeting, and there's a box
Go.
with a square, or you can just close that out too. And close that
There's
tab out.
smiley face with a meeting.
Okay, so do you see the box that's already? Yeah, just push stop presenting.
Not presenting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So the Cookie Bytes, the teamwork one is I bring in a great big tray full of everything you need to make chocolate chip cookies. And I say, look at all this. You need flour and sugar and you need chips and a pan and a pitcher of an oven. And you need 18 things to make chocolate chip cookies. 18 things. Everything has a role and every role matters. That's like a team. It's not about the salt or the sugar. It's what they do together to make the cookie. So you're giving kids a concrete visual. And the premise behind all of this is the content that we teach can never be more important than the kid. We can't teach stuff to kids. We have to teach kids stuff. Because if here's your stuff and you're trying to teach it to kids and they might not want to learn it, you're doing this and your energy is just in the wrong direction. But if you are one of those that says, come here, come see this, this is awesome, and you're pulling the kid across, it's different, because all the energy goes in your, and I tell teachers every day, if you don't love your job, maybe you're just working too hard in the wrong direction. Because kids are not that hard. I mean, you push A to get B, and if A doesn't work for me, I'll push C, D, R, Q, X, whatever. But I want B. What do I want? I want to be seen, heard, and validated. And when a child feels seen, heard, and validated in your classroom, they do backflips to stay in there. So we've had, originally I made it for school counselors and therapists and social workers, and we had a school use this, and then they showed their teachers about it, and their teachers started using it in daily practice as they needed it, just, grab stuff as they need. It's like their own TPT for great people skills. And their tier 1 referrals went down 51% in 3 weeks.
Wow.
Okay? This is not like TPT where you buy a product and then you decide if you like it, because if you're a member, you own everything. The cost of Cookie Bytes is $5 a month. You can cancel anytime. I just feel like everyone who works with kids deserves everything they can get their hands on to help, and it shouldn't cost a fortune. I mean, TPT is an amazing website, and I've gotten some great stuff off of there. And so this is just kind of, I think that their model wanted to make it a little bit easier and even cheaper. And so you own everything. If you can't find something, you email me, I make it. And if you don't like something the way it is, you tell me, and I will fix it.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can tutors use it as well? Because I don't have
everyone can use it. And you know what? It's an amazing parent resource. Okay. An amazing parent resource, because parents I don't know how to teach my kid about lying. So they get on there and there's a video about telling the truth and trust, and you show it with colored water, and then they do that with their kids, and it's like, oh, I made a connection. So it's for parents, teachers, counselors, therapists. It's for anyone who works with kids. CASA members are really grabbing onto it, because they work with kids and they need stuff to do with them. And why shouldn't it be fun?
Yes, as you were showing that, I thought if I was still in the classroom, that would have been a resource I probably would have used weekly, like you said, because there was always something going on with that group of kids that you needed to kind of tackle. But what I love the most is you have yourself reading the book. You've got all the resources are built in there, and you can search it easily.
A good teacher plans every lesson around their most challenging kids. That's a great tip to remember, because you don't teach your kids what you want them to learn. You teach your kids what's going to work best for them. And if you plan it around your biggest verb, then every lesson's going to be a winner.
Yeah. And, you can sprinkle that in where you've got time. We always have some time in our day to support the social emotional needs of our students. But the other thing I was thinking as you were sharing that was the homeschool community.
Yes.
They are always looking for resources and talk about.
I would love to do some homeschool conference presenting. I don't know who to get a hold of for that. And I think there are a lot of homeschool moms and parents that use my stuff, but I would love to let them know about this, because it is, it's cheap and it's worthy. And and there's no risk, because if you don't love it, you just cancel it, So that's it.
Yes. I have a question about that website. Did you develop everything yourself, or did you have a team helping you? That is incredible.
Well, so I have an amazing web designer, and then I have an amazing illustrator. The book I got this is illustrated by Dale Crawford. And so he really believes in kids too. So I'll hand him chicken scratch on a paper and I'll say, build this, and he'll do it. So he creates the art, and then I create the ideas, and then he creates the art, and then he sends it to Gina, and Gina puts it on the site. So every month new stuff gets added. Nothing ever gets taken off unless it stinks. And then new stuff gets added. So it will always grow in content, but it will never grow in cost. As long as I'm alive, it will never go up. So
that's absolutely credible.
It's kind of a great way to be able to still give without having to go go to the schools and I mean, that, so, but, and you can listen, if you're a parent, you can listen to the books. You can get on your phone and just call it Cookie Bites, and they can listen to me read in the car. You'll get really tired of Julie Cook's squeaky voice. It's fun.
Well, and that also makes me think of like my recommendation for reluctant readers. Sometimes they can read really well. They just don't enjoy reading. And so many times I'll recommend listen to an audiobook and get the book yourself and follow along. And so that's another great way to kind of get those kids reading that maybe can read, but don't really enjoy it. So
well,
I
and
love
teachers don't have a lot of money. So maybe you want to buy a book, but you're not sure if you want it or if it's going to work for your kids. And so you listen to it first, and then you don't have to have the books to do the activities. Okay. So this is just a bunch of stuff that works with kids, that's hands-on, that will help make the kid be more important than your content. And it'll have fun. And I mean, it's just like, when you play a video game, this is the size of your footprint. So to win that video game, you have to push the button twice. To win in real life, okay, this is the size of your footprint. So if you push the button twice, 1, 2, oh, it's too hard, I can't do it. I quit, it's too hard. What you don't realize is if you keep trying in real life, when you do win, it's 5 times harder, but it's 5 times the dopamine. So if you can have on-screen highs and off-screen highs at the same time, you're going to be just fine. But if the only time you feel good is when you're on a line, like if I put something on Insta in 45 minutes, 45,000 people see it, how long is it going to take me to talk to 45,000 people? Real life's really hard. So it's all about balancing on-screen highs and off-screen highs. And this plays both, because someone puts something online that's really mean about you, you feel like everybody knows it, versus if someone just said something mean about you. So we really have to work on building kids' inner core. And it used to be that I could say, Sheryl, I'm so proud of you. And that's external praise. And now that falls very deaf on kids' ears, because they get internal praise when they're playing a game. They get internal praise when someone posts online. So a better option is to say, Sheryl, I know I'm proud of you, but I can only imagine how great you must be feeling about yourself. I bet you're doing a happy dance, and that's how parents, I can only imagine how upset you must feel. I imagine how great you must be feeling about yourself. So then you're coinciding with that internal validation. That's a game changer. And just knowing how to say those things, that's the stuff that's on Cookie Bites.
Yeah, I like that, because sometimes we are stuck with what to say, and you're modeling that, and the parents are growing and the kids are growing, and it's a great way to make those. Sometimes our kids drift away from us, and it's a great way to bring them back.
There's video on there that you want to get your kids talking. You say, what's your high, what's your low, what's your sprinkle? So your high is the best thing that happened to you, and low is the worst thing that happened to you today. And your sprinkle is, how did you show kindness or get kindness from someone else? And, you can even do high, low, and sprinkle with high schoolers. It's fun. So
I love that. So I think we're kind of to the end of talking about Cookie Bites, but is there anything else that you'd like to share about your social media, book talk availability, or where, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, where would be the best place to find you to make that connection?
Go to juliacookonline.com, and you can just email me from my website. And Cookie Bites by Julia.com, and Bytes is BYTES. And then I have an Instagram and a Facebook page as well. But juliacookonline.com is my, and my email is julia@juliacookonline.com.
All
So
right.
you can always email me and ask questions, or, inquire. I love to do visits. I do a lot of those, and a lot of staff development, and a lot of parent talks. It's fun.
I think you are a resource that we could all really benefit from. And I love the fact that you've gone to all this work to create this amazing website that's got so many resources.
I'm
I
actually
congratulate you.
writing a book, Sheryl, for grown-ups. I've never done that. I got approached by a big publisher, Wiley Publishing, Jossie Bass, and they said, you need to write a book for teachers. And I said, well, I stop at 8. I can't do that. But they're working with me. And so the book will be entitled something like Kids Over Content. And it'll just have a bunch of fun stories and, kind of be a chicken soupy for the soul for teachers, but then a lot of nuts and bolts that you can use to that maybe you haven't thought of, to make yourself like, make sure you plan your lesson around the hardest kid. I mean, that's one of them. So
Yeah, what a great, I always go back to classroom management. Like you said, you can't teach the kids unless the kids are ready to learn, and you have to get them ready to learn by making those connections. And what a great resource. And especially, I mean, not even just for the beginning teacher, but for the experienced teacher who's like got the class that like just keeps on giving.
Right. And every teacher was 8 at one time, so they can
That's right.
definitely relate, right?
exactly.
Yes, that's great. I want to thank you for coming on. Tina, do you have any other questions for Julia?
Oh, I have so many, but I don't want to keep you forever.
No.
I just want to say thank you for these amazing resources that you came up with. I love the topics that you're tackling. Some people would be like, "Oh, she didn't talk about that," but yeah, why not? Why not? I don't think anything should be off the table. Kids are curious. We tend to lose our curiosity as we get older, and I love how you're making that, enforcing that kind of a thing. You're in building in that curiosity to adults to remember what it was like to be a kid. And I love your books. Just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you.
parents have the hardest job on the planet, and teachers have the second hardest job. So we got to work together here.
That's exactly right. Well, we will be sure to share all of the links in the description. I want to thank everybody for coming to watch, our recording here, and reach out to Julia if you have any questions or either one of us. You guys make it a great day. And as usual, keep the learning going.